Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to an all-American pickup video. We're rocking the 16 ounce today, just because they were out of cans at the supermarket. So, I do have to restate this again. I do film these out of sequence. Basically, I have a stack, I make a stack, I cut a stack, and then I film a pickup video, and then I toss it up. So... Once again, some people were like, wait a minute, you didn't pick this? Dude, they're out of sequence. That's all it is. Pretty much, because I schedule all this stuff in advance. Right, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, one thing I will say, and one thing I will do in terms of dating myself, is the Xbox FOMO continues. So, I actually did not get any Xbox 360 games this time. Instead, we went all the way back to the OG Xbox. And we have some pickups here. Primarily stuff that is either not backwards compatible or is backwards compatible via disc only, or just something that just plain isn't. So first we have Quantum Redshift. This is kind of like a vehicular combat-y sort of wipeout thing. This was an Xbox exclusive. I had this way back in the day. So true story here. So back in the... I gotta do it. The glorious days of the YouTube gaming community. When my now wife had just moved in, they actually had a yard sale, or a yard sale, here in Manhattan, which is not really a thing. It's more of like a neighborhood sale. And where I live is mostly residential. It's a lot of older folks, and it's a lot of like, you know, the brownstone sort of buildings, townhouses, stuff like that. So we were walking down our street maybe midday after lunch or something, and there was a horde of people, and it said, you know, yard sale or street sale or whatever the heck it was. And I looked at her and I said, I wonder if they have video games. And she goes, oh, Jesus Christ. Because at the time we were watching a lot of Bithead 1000. So we decided to go down there, and I gotta tell you, this sale, I'm going to hell for this. So many old ladies just selling doilies, napkins, silverware, teacups. And the only thing I could think is they ain't going to need it where they're going. She hit me for it, so you guys don't have to. But anyway, there was one guy, young guy, definitely like, you know, this was like his first apartment he got in college or something like that. And he was selling off all stuff. And in the back of like his like boothy thing, he had an OG Xbox and a huge stack of games, and he was pretty much, you could say, like your typical Xbox dude. He had a LAN cable, he had Halo 1, he had Halo 2, and he had a bunch of superhero games. And then he also had a couple of fighting games. I think he had DOA 1 and 2, or the box set rather. He also had, what else was in there? I think he had the Dungeons and Dragons Heroes game in there. Maybe a Lord of the Rings game. You could tell the generation. And finally, a Bible game. So I had offered, he was asking, I think, for like 100 or 120. So I said, okay, give me a minute. And I ran to an ATM because, you know, there was no Venmo at the time. Go to an ATM, come back with the cash. And I say, how much was it? And he gave me a different number than he gave me originally. And I was like, okay, listen, I live up the block, like maybe 2 or 3 blocks away. If I go home and this stuff doesn't work, am I going to get my money back? And he goes, well, how much are you willing to pay? And I said, how about $80 for all of it, including the console, 2 controllers, all these games and whatnot. And he goes, well, and I go, listen, if it doesn't work, you're not going to have the money anyway, right? When was the last time you used this? He goes, oh, bro, I haven't used it for years. So he took the $80 cash, went home, everything worked perfectly. But this OG Xbox, luckily, I lucked out because I didn't realize there was models that have a kill switch technically in them. This is not, my model is not one of them. But amidst the games, he did have this one, which I actually sold off and I wanted to get it back in. This is Bloodwake. And this is basically Twisted Metal with boats. Kind of tacky story. At the time, I really just wasn't in the mood for a game like this. And part of me wanted to reclaim some of the money I spent on this lot, because ultimately all I really wanted were like the fighting games and the superhero games. So if I remember, it was Ultimate Spider-Man was in there, Punisher, all the Ravensoft X-Men games, like, Mutant Alliance or whatever it was, all those games were in there too. But this was one of them, and I had played it, and I wasn't too nuts on it, but I was watching some video the other day as of this recording, and this was on there, and I was like, oh wow, that actually looks pretty fun. They also mentioned Secrets Over Normandy. This is a LucasArts joint, and this was done by the guys who I think did either Crimson Skies or eventually did Heroes Over Europe. I can't remember exactly. But you can also get DLC to play as an X-Wing and a TIE Fighter because it's LucasArts. This is a backwards compatible game, but it's not available digitally, I think, because of licensing of these planes from 1942. But I was interested in picking this up because I like flight sims, but to be honest with you, the only one that has clicked with me in recent memory is Crimson Skies, and there's no way in hell we're getting a sequel to that. Now this game has a saga behind it, and that is Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Dawn of Destiny. And, alright, so all this started because DMP, aka Devil May Pie, decided he was going to rebuild his video game collection after he foolishly sold it all off. And now he has to pay the price, literally, for a lot of the games he wants back. The good news is a lot of the games he wants aren't really that expensive. Some of them are, but a bunch of them aren't really that expensive. One of them being Yu-Gi-Oh! Dawn of Destiny. And this is an Xbox, OG Xbox exclusive. There was a few other ones like Duel of the Roses, and I think Forbidden Kingdom, I think, is the other one. Or is that... No, Forbidden Memories is on the PS1. I think Forbidden Kingdom is on the GameCube. But anyway, he mentioned this game. I completely forgot about it. I decided to look up gameplay, and in case you guys don't know, I, at one point, did play Yu-Gi-Oh! I still have my deck. I do play Duel Links every once in a blue moon, but if I see a current meta deck, I kind of just, scoop and walk away. Because I play Dark Magician, because I'm old. And I have a Dark Magician statue over there, and I actually have a custom piece of artwork I got at the Midwest Gaming Classic, with Exodia being summoned against Kaiba. Maybe one day I'll do a desk tour update thing so you guys can see what's going on. But anyway, Midwest Gaming Classic was coming up, and I was like, all right, cool, I'll get it at the show. Why not? What better place, what easier place for me to find this freaking game? I saw this game twice, the whole show. The first time, it was with a printed it was a printed case art. And the second time, I don't remember what it was. I think it was like in a Blockbuster case, and it literally with a piece of duct tape that said Yu-Gi-Oh! On it. And I was beside myself. I could not believe it. And even Emperor Fox was like, yeah, like, this is a game I would expect to see 1,000 times. Like, why is this not showing up? So, Steve-O Supremo, in his wacky garage sailing adventures, decides to go to a game store one day to off some of the stuff that he's bought because he just doesn't like putting it on eBay, and he'd rather sell it locally or to his buddies, which makes sense. And he's at this game store, and he happened across this, and I was in the middle of something at the time. But this is where I always like to say Steve-O Supremo is like one of the best game hunting partners. He just bought it. He was like, screw it. If he doesn't need it, I'll take it. And maybe 3 hours later, I was like, oh my god, I missed it. He's like, don't worry, I already bought it. And I was like, does it have the cards? He's like, what do you mean, does it have the cards? Of course it doesn't have the cards. Are you out of your mind? But nonetheless, holy hell, this was like 3 months in the making to get this damn game, and I still haven't played it. But I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, now we're going to move on to the Switch. Man, I really did not plan out this pickup video. Okay, so as a bunch of you guys know, I do order a lot of stuff from PlayAsia. That's why I call these the All-American pickup videos. But what I do is I bundle a bunch of stuff together. I pick like months where stuff tends to come out at the same time. Maybe they're close by, like an August, September thing. Or there's a wacky deal where it's like buy 3 games for $60 or something along those lines. And I basically stack everything just to get the free shipping. And then I use a discount coupon, so it just balances out best for me. And I don't have a constant flow of packages coming in. Basically, it's like a care package once a month or once every other month. But That being said, there is a huge stack of stuff here that just showed up all at once. So, and I don't remember what they came in, but first off, we have, I think it translates to the Misadventures in Sweetland. And this is sort of like a side-scrolling RPG-esque sort of budget game. It was only $20, brand new. And it kind of reminds me of, I forgot the exact name, but it's like Battle Princess Arcadia. It was a PS3 side-scrolling RPG game that was put up by NIS digitally years and years and years ago. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Battle Princess Arcadia. It's actually really, it was pretty good mechanically. Story-wise, it put me to sleep. But it was one of those games where, at the time, NIS was trying purposely to be funny with games that weren't this guy, and it just wasn't hitting. Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door. This obviously did not come from PlayAsia. This came from somewhere else. But I've played Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. I finished on the GameCube. Made me late for work. Famously, I think I strutted on in like 2 hours late. Because that last boss has a lot of freaking talking. And I do understand with this new version, despite the tweaks and changes and all that. I even may have mentioned this in another pickup video, but you're now allowed to skip cutscenes you've already seen. So if you die on the last boss, like I did a handful of times, which ultimately makes you 2 hours late for work, you don't have to worry about that. Plus it's on the Switch, so you just put it on sleep. Umbra Claw. This is the latest Inti Creates joint, and I gotta say, I really enjoy them as a developer these days. When it comes to side-scrolling action games like, you know, your Blaster Master Zeros, which I finished all of, you know, your Bloodstained spin-offs with Curse of the Moon, you know, they're just so good. Even Gal Guardians or Grim Gal Guardians or whatever they had to rebrand it to. You know, as a side-scrolling Castlevania-esque sort of game, that was really fun as well. And with this one, they actually put out a demo. And the mechanic behind it is first you play as a cat, which mine's over there. And every time you get hit, you actually kind of evolve more into a anthropomorphic cat. And basically you get more and more aggressive, or you become more animalistic the more human you become, I think is pretty much the mechanic. And it kind of changes how you platform and everything too. The demo seemed pretty cool, but I didn't really play through the whole thing because something I've noticed with demos these days, they just give you the tutorial. I'm like, fucker, let me experiment in the demo so I can be like, okay, I can kind of get this. I really wish there was a tutorial. Oh, look, I can select it. I understand why that's not a thing. Now, this game, I have to give a PSA. I don't know when this is going to go up, and I also don't know when this is going to happen. This is Tokyo Psychodemic. This is a visual novel game with some forensic psychology and investigation using photorealistic images. And I was super hyped when I heard about this. Kind of point and click, kind of visual novel using realistic environments and everything else. Really cool in concept. Came out on Steam, came out on Switch, multi-language. The 11th hour. Oh, by the way, the English release ain't ready. Neither is the Korean or the traditional Japanese. But we're gonna release it later. Too late to cancel it. Too freaking late to cancel. I would have waited, because I was planning, truthfully, to pop this in the second it showed up, and now I gotta wait, and there's no date. And even the Steam reviews are livid. I mean, the Steam reviews get livid over everything. You can't use the keyboard, you know, for a controller-based platforming game. Who knew? But, you know, that's just, it's really shitty. At least with the Goblin Slayer game, they gave you like a month's notice if you wanted to cancel. And I don't believe that even has the English translation ready yet. But I think that also may be a licensing thing. Or they have some sort of like physical release playing with like a limited run or something like that. Warg Grove 1 and 2. I bought Warg Grove 1 locally, like when it came out. Obviously never played it. Warg Grove 2 came out. I didn't even know. And then I found out it came out because it was on sale. And I was like, oh, sweet. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's no physical release. And then all of a sudden this popped up on PlayAsia. So I grabbed this because I wanted a physical copy of Warg Grove 2 to go with Warg Grove 1, but Super Rare also did their own release, and the only reason why I went with this one, besides the soundtrack that it came with, oh, and Tokyo Psychedemic did come with the soundtrack as well, is because this was $22 as opposed to Super Rare Games $60. The exchange rate, I can't fight it, man. Can't fight it. Cupid Parasite, this is an otome visual novel. Don't really have much else to say about that. I still like them. Don't hate. Kawai Dan, Azuma Manor Story. You know, we're going to Americanize it the best we can because this is the all-American pickup video. This is kind of like a janky survival horror Onimusha Resident Evil PS2 style game. This has been out a very long time. This is a PlayAsia joint. I know I've said joint a few times, and people think that that's how I actually say it. It's really janky though. I did play this digitally for a bit. It's, if you grew up with this stuff, you're gonna be like, ooh, guilty pleasure. Rad Riggy 2. These games are very strange. As far as shmups go, these are very, very strange. Very stylized. There's a lot of dialogue. I have no idea if any of it is important at all. All I know is if you shoot the ships, they fall down. But that being said, they're really competent. They're actually really freaking good. And the ones on the Wii, through unscrupulous means, mind you, are phenomenal. I wouldn't pay the price they go for now. But if I had known about them at the time, I definitely would have imported them. Shiren the Wanderer. I may have mentioned this in a previous pickup video, but I can't recall. I am so hit or miss with these games. When it comes to these mystery dungeon games, I either love them or I hate them, or I'm like, oh yeah, I like it. I get to a boss, I wipe out, and I gotta do the whole thing over again. I go, yeah, we're putting you on the shelf. But I like Shiren the Wanderer. That's probably the one I've stuck with the most. Star Wars Heritage Pack. Again, I may have mentioned this one in a previous pickup video. I just can't recall because all this stuff blended together. This is a very strange release because the two KOTAR games, Knights of the Old Republic, are digital downloads. But to be honest with you, they're not even the best versions because you can't get mods. And that's not me being PC Master Race or anything. It was originally advertised that KOTOR 2 on the Switch was going to have all the missing content that's been on PC for years. And as I had a hunch when I heard this in the market, I was like, there is no way in fucking hell they're going to get marketing and licensing approval for all this shit. And sure enough, they didn't. And they overpromised, underdelivered. And I actually had the physical release of KOTOR 1 and 2 on the Switch. But when I saw this, I kind of wanted to check out the Knights of the Old Republic, not Knights of the Old Republic, the Jedi Knight games. And yes, I have them rigged up on GOG so I can play them on the PC. But I keep getting weird sound glitches. And it's really freaking annoying. So I decided, let me do this. And also it has the Force Unleashed. This is the Wii version, not the PS3 and Xbox version, which is inherently different from the other ones. Republic Commando and Star Wars Pod Racer, I could give a rat's ass about. But the way I see it is, I had so many of these physically, I kind of just sold them off, and this went on sale for May 5th, or May the 4th be with you. So I made money. That's how I see it. Namcot collection. Truthfully, I really only bought this because A, it's a nice little compilation of old Namcot games from the Famicom, but it does include Splatterhouse Wampaku Graffiti, or whatever, the graffiti SD version of Splatterhouse. That's really the main reason why I want to get it, but there you can also get like Mappy and stuff as downloadable content as well. This was, I think when it came out it was like $40, but PlayAsia had it for like $11, so stack it up. Saint Maker, this is a visual novel from PlayAsia. It's a little bit of a dark, demented thing. I don't really know much else. I just like dark and spooky survival, not survival horror, horror-based visual novels, so I thought I'd grab that. That was also on sale, I think, for $19.99 or $20. This thing is massive. When this game came out, I passed on because it was like $90. It's two rhythm games using a mixture of music, but based around, I think, Chinese folk music originally. And the music itself, not really my jam, but in terms of composition, it sounded really cool. But I wasn't paying $90. PlayAsia put this on sale for like $22. So maybe 4 years later, I finally grabbed it. Same thing with Dead in Vinland, the Viking edition. I played this on Steam a bit. This is kind of one of those survival Darkest Dungeons style games, and I like Vikings. A lot of you guys know that. I already said in another video at one point, like, if you give me Norse mythology or Greek mythology, and I basically have a heart attack because I don't know which one to pick. It's a pretty good game. I'm not gonna say it's a phenomenal game. This took forever and a week to come out from PlayAsia for whatever reason. But when it finally did, they just heavily discounted it. This, I think, was originally $29.99. They made it like $12.99 or something like that. And I was like, okay, fuck it. We're going to get on the Switch because every time I sit down in front of the laptop to play it, I get distracted. This is the Warg Grove 1 and 2 soundtrack that came by ordering the PlayAsia version. And this one, I'm going to butcher the name because I can't remember. Mistia's Izakaya. This is a Toho spin-off joint. This has been on Steam for a bit. It has a lot of DLC. I don't know if any of it is included on this release. But basically, it is a restaurant simulator based in the Toho universe. I like management games to an extent. I enjoy playing them, but when I've had enough, I've had enough. I was going to get this on PC because it was $3.99. But then literally the guy's like, yo, I'm putting this on Switch. And he goes, and I'll be honest with you, I really like the Switch port. And I was like, all right, fine. So we'll wait for that. And it just looks really charming. I look up gameplay on Steam because I'm too lazy to figure out how to do it myself. But it looks really cool. All right, and to wrap this shit up, we have a homebrew game, Deidus. This was also on PlayAsia for $29.99, reduced from like $89.99. This is a horror game on the Game Boy. And this came out, I think, in 2002. Actually, it's funny. Incube 8 has a bunch of these games, actually. They have, like, a shooter. I think they have 2 survival horror games. They have a visual novel. And I backed their Kickstarter for the RPG they were originally developing on the Game Boy Color, like, 1,000 years ago. They said it was almost finished, but that was, like, 5 years ago. So I don't know what their definition of almost finished is, but I think somebody got a little carried away. But in the meantime, they've been releasing all these other games. And what I do like about them is that on their website, if you order from them directly, they actually give you the average time to play these things. Because some of these homebrews are like, oh, yeah, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, $100. And you're like, it's only an hour long. Like certain smelly stories that have recently fixed themselves. That was a marketing nightmare. But something like this, I think they said there's 10 endings in this, and it's like 4 or 5 hours long. But for $30, can't miss. That's how I see it. And on the PS4, got this release day, actually. Sandland. Second time I've had to do that recently. I wanted to do a video, I'm going to date myself here, on Akira Toriyama and his passing, because that man did a lot for a lot of our childhoods, mine included. And by the time I finally figured out what I wanted to say, it was not sound funny 2 months too late. But I will say this. I read the Sandland manga. I thought it was cute. I don't know how they could have made it into a full game. Because the manga itself is only like 80 pages. And it's really fast. It's very quick and to the point. And it's really funny reading like some of the liner notes. Like, the reason why a lot of it is dialogue is because Toriyama said drawing the tank was like such a chore. He was like, I hate drawing this damn thing. He's like, we should never put him in a tank. But basically, you play as a demon. And as it goes, there is, at least in the manga, there is, I think it's a king or an emperor or some sort of president or whatever, basically has a monopoly on the world's water. Thus, Sandland, because there's no water. This guy's been hoarding it. And the world ended, and the demons kind of just hang out there and they live. They don't actually kill people. They're not very vicious. They just got a bum rap. But ultimately, they're just a bunch of tricksters. So Beelzebub, who's the main character, is basically panned out to be like Trunks, but a demon. And they meet a gentleman, because I don't want to spoil everything. They get a tank, and then basically you can put 2 and 2 together. They go to find this mysterious oasis that somebody talked about. So I have no idea what this game is supposed to be. But from what I've heard in previews and everything else, people say it starts off really good, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of stealth shit, and nobody knows why. I don't mind stealth gameplay unless you pad it out a lot. So I figure, at least for Akira Toriyama, you know, I don't know how much of the proceeds Bird Studios gets for this. At least as of this recording, they've paused on Dragon Ball Super, the manga, and I think anything they were doing with a future season of it. And it's unfortunate, you know, I know it's out of respect, and I totally get that, and I would do absolutely the same, and I have no doubt the series will continue, but it's very heavy emotionally, especially for me, having grown up with it. Alone in the Dark, I think I may have mentioned this. I've rebought this like 4 times now because it keeps going down in price. And that should tell you something. I love David Harbour. Everybody says he phoned in for this game, and it's really unfortunate because that demo was so promising. A lot of people say, you know, this is like the 5th Alone in the Dark reboot, and they just can't figure it out. They should just leave it alone. But my wife and I love playing these sorts of games, these point-and-click adventure games made more into a like a Walking Dead game. I don't want to say a walking simulator because I'll get yelled at. But like, you know, your Madisons and stuff like that, you know, where it's more of an immersive environmental experience. We both really enjoy playing these sorts of things. And when I played the demo and showed her the trailer for this, she's like, oh, you love him. We have to get it. So there you go. Sackboy Big Adventure. This one on sale for Days of Play. And this is I played a little bit of this with my wife, co-op actually. And when I originally sold it way back when, she was like, why'd you do that? And I was like, oh, because it's part of PlayStation Plus. And then when I saw it was on sale, I was like, oh, the Sackboy game's on sale. She goes, you should buy that again because I like playing physical. And I was like, damn it, you've been living with me for too long. And then finally we got Earth Defense Force World Brothers 2. This is kind of like a voxel style of the Earth Defense Force games. There's so many of them at this point. And I would say if you've been curious about any of them, just play one. You play one, you'll know if you like the rest of the series. It's a bunch of ridiculous nonsense, shooting up giant ants, bugs, flies, scorpions. There's spiders, though. So if you have arachnophobia, you've been warned. And that's it. Those are the pickups. I've been Alex, and I'll see you all in the next video. Hopefully a real one. Take care.